Welcome to the Dogtor Bros, where we have an honest discussion around vet life in and out of the clinic. My name is Adam. I'm your doc of the day and your guide through this episode. So before we get into introductions, I just wanted to tell you guys that this past week at work, I hit a milestone. It's not a work-related milestone per se, more of an age-related milestone. I actually threw out my back while using a lint roller. So that did happen to me. Signs of getting old, I know. So that kind of got me thinking about our job and what we do every day. Our job is very demanding. Both mentally and physically. Physically, whether it be wrestling a 100-pound aggressive German Shepherd, trying to wrangle a fractious cat, or just simply trying to get the fur off your scrubs. It's a dangerous game. So it got me thinking about other jobs and other careers that I was interested in the past, and kind of made me wonder if I would have taken the physical toll that I've taken in my current job if I'd taken other career paths. So it was just, kind of getting me thinking about other things that I was interested in. So that kind of opens me up for you guys for your introduction. If we want to go around, just again, say your name, where you're from, what you do, and then just kind of give me another career path that you were interested in before vet school.
Hey, this is Chris. I'm a GP in North Carolina. Kind of thinking about if I wanted to be a veterinarian. I've always wanted to be a veterinarian since I was a little kid. I didn't really waver much until I got into undergrad, and I was like, I think I want to be a physical therapist. That lasted for about a semester, and then I realized what I really wanted to do was be a vet. So in the end, I'm here now. I'm a veterinarian, but I've always wanted to be a vet.
This is Brandon. For me, I honestly didn't think of anything different outside of veterinary school. I mean, I've been pretty dedicated to pursuing this career for a long time, and there was maybe a point in college where I was just like, what the hell is happening with some of the courses we had to take to get into vet school, with a little bit of discouragement, but prevailed through that and stayed on track.
Hey y'all, this is Jeff. I'm a third-year resident in dermatology, and I guess my alternate career, I always thought I'd go into human nutrition or potentially something in the sports health realm on the human side. I don't really know why. I mean, I guess those things are fun in my off time, unrelated to vet med that I kind of dabble in or have hobbies in for myself, but that's where I guess I might end up.
Okay, cool. For me, the other two career paths that I had thought early on were either something in audio recording, audio mixing, something in music, not necessarily performing music, but kind of behind the scenes working with the production side of things.
DJ Adam.
Or coming at you live.
Wiki.
Or even, and this one will probably shock you guys, honestly, being a storm chaser, honestly was something that I thought would be pretty awesome. And I am by no means a thrill seeker when it comes to dangerous things. Like that's not me, but for some reason, storm chasing just really seemed interesting to me. So, but ended up where I am. Happy I am, because not only with where I'm at now with my profession, but also if I hadn't gone down this path, I would not have met my wife, and I would not have met you guys. So everything worked out okay on that front. Moving into kind of our main segment here. Again, we kind of want to focus early on here about getting to know us. So what we're going to do here is kind of go around and kind of focus on each of us individually. So get to know each of us on a little bit more of a personal level, a little bit of our background before vet school, as well as the path and journey that we took after vet school. So on today's episode, we're going to focus on the specialist or specialist to be. So that would be Jeff in dermatology and Brandon in internal medicine. And so we'll kind of split this episode kind of in half and kind of go with each one of them, kind of just have a deep dive and learn a little bit more about them. So we'll start with you, Jeff. So I'll open it up with a pretty broad and hopefully easy question for you. So just kind of go through a little bit about your life before vet school, kind of where you grew up, what you were into, and then kind of what led you into the path you chose in moving forward into vet school.
So on the day of my birth, it was very bright. It's the first thing that I can remember. I think it was a stormy day. And
okay, maybe let's start maybe high school.
Okay. And I also need to point out, first of all, before I talk about that, when you said you wanted to be a storm chaser, the first thing that came to my mind was stormtrooper, and it took me a solid 2 minutes of no one laughing to realize I was like, oh, you want to like drive around. And I was like, why would you want to be shot at in Star Wars?
I am a terrible shot, so I would probably qualify, but
exactly what they're looking for.
Anyways,
so I would say starting off in like high school, thoughts about veterinary medicine in general, I had always grown up with animals, kind of been very classical, stereotypical, like dead set on getting into vet school, and becoming just a regular veterinarian is all that I knew. And my first time kind of thinking about things would probably honestly be more in college, when I was kind of thinking, okay, what are possibilities for me to actually get into vet school, and how can I make myself like more diversified as far as my, I don't know, resume or portfolio or whatever. And I actually took by accident some avian medicine classes that I really liked my first year. And so I thought, hey, there's probably not a bunch of bird related vets out there. And my favorite advisor in college was like the professor of a lot of those classes. And he was like, yeah, why not go for it? So I kind of moved through college thinking I would I took lots and lots and lots of bird classes, and I use bird classes as like my upper level electives, animal electives that we all have to take in undergrad. You have to take something to get your degree, because I was a quote unquote biological sciences degree, which I say with quotes because it was just, I like to call it fancy biology, or the biology of the College of Agriculture. It doesn't matter, except that I took a lot of bird classes, and that is actually a fun fact of what I thought I'd need to get into vet school. So I actually applied to vet school thinking that I would go into avian medicine. That's
pretty wild that it kind of stemmed from an accident.
It did, for sure.
that your career path here kind of fell into place, I guess, the way it was meant to. So I know, in vet school, you kind of dabbled with a lot of different things. Like you said, you started with avian medicine. You were interested in surgery for a while. Tell us a little bit about, after you got out of vet school, the kind of path you went down that kind of led you to where you're at now.
So I guess I'll just super briefly say like what happened in vet school with my interests wise, which I took a full 180 away from avian medicine after spending a little bit of time with one of our alumni who has a small exotics and birds clinic. realized that birds are very fragile and also can hurt you. So I got a lot less interested in that, shifted more into surgery after spending some time with a surgeon during some externships during summer in vet school. So really was gung-ho into surgery, and then that led me into the path of, well, when you're in vet school and you think about specializing, it's all about like, how do I get an internship? And for anybody who doesn't know, that's like a rotating internship for graduated veterinarians who have passed boards, and you spend 80 plus hours, 80 to 100 hours a week working, depending on the program, working at a clinic and rotating through. For me, it was a small animal rotating internship, and I rotated through departments like oncology, internal medicine, ophthalmology, surgery, radiology, and a couple others, dermatology, and got super burnt out during my rotating internship, and was, after working with surgeons, got kind of less interested in that. And then I went into general practice for a year, found huge interest in dermatology, and then shifted gears to where I am now.
That's quite the journey to get to where you're at, but I'm glad that you are where you're at. And
Thanks.
You seem pretty happy with it. So, I know you had also mentioned that sometimes former students will still contact you about surgery-related things.
So some of y'all, I think, have not let go of the fact that I did not go into surgery, and I feel like it's mostly my classmates who, so y'all definitely included, who've attached my identity to surgery, even though I have let it go in my heart. But I could see where you're coming from, because I do the same thing with several of our other classmates. Like, shout out to Shun, who will be on here one day, who is an equine practitioner who I just never imagined would be anything out of small animal. So that does happen.
Talk about a 180, right?
Full 180. I don't know how I got here, but here I am. But I love it.
Now, some listeners may or may not know. So, obviously, this is your favorite and will be your most successful claim to fame by far, this podcast. But some listeners may not know that you actually got your start on television in your what's the word I'm looking for? Your path to stardom, if you will. So tell us a little bit about your experience working with a TV crew.
Yeah. So yes, if you happen to have Disney Plus, technically I am on a television show called Pop Goes the Vet with Dr. Joya, who Dr. Joya happens to be my boss and my mentor. So I am in every episode. I guess you could call me a guest star, if you will. I don't know where my Emmy nomination is, or if it got lost in the mail. I'm sure it's coming. But on Disney Plus, we are there, and as far as working with the crew goes, it was a surreal, unexpected experience. So this all occurred, I guess the mentioning of it kind of happened during my derm internship, which was the year after my general practice year, doing a year only in derm, and then kind of rolling into my residency is when things kind of finalized for being on the show. And we did sort of like this intro deal, or multiple videos that were used kind of as like, I don't know if the right word is incentive or trailer for the network to look at and to get picked up, as they say, as we say in the biz. And that kind of snowballed into, they actually filmed for a couple of months at our practice and just followed us around, followed certain cases. And I think logistics wise, it was really interesting because I was just like, I just work here. Like I was not planning to be on television or anything, but I can say that the crew themselves were overall a lot of fun and it was a good experience, but it was definitely a challenging experience, just kind of working through a normal case in a clinic and then just having those cases extended for long periods of time while you're trying to get filming done. And I think if you actually go and watch the show, it does reflect pretty well our personalities and my staff and our nurses and all of us there. I think they did a pretty good job with how they portrayed us. So it's all real for sure with how they did it.
Season 2?
I have no idea if there's going to be a season 2. I get asked all the time, so you'll be the first to know if I find out. I've only been told that we are not canceled, so I guess we'll find out.
And I have one final question for you, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe I feel like you told me once before, when you pass boards, you will be the first Black male veterinary dermatologist in the world?
Yeah, so as far as I know, it's the college, at least in the College of American Veterinary Dermatology, or ACVD, American College of Veterinary Dermatology, there's not a Black male dermatologist yet. There's around 4, don't quote me, 4 or 5 Black female dermatologists. And so when I pass boards in this year in November, I could be the first. We'll be the first. We'll be the first.
We'll be.
Yes. Terrified. Yes.
You got it, man.
Sounds good.
Well, that's awesome. We're obviously all rooting for you, and we can't wait to see that happen.
Thanks.
And we wish you the best and the best of luck on your boards. So I will shift gears, and we will move on over to specialist to be Brandon. So Brandon, if you could, kind of following similar format here, if you could give us a little bit of your backstory before vet school, kind of, where you grew up, where you went to high school, college, whatever, what you were into, and then what kind of led you down the path to veterinary medicine.
For me, it was actually like a few key moments really early on in my childhood. I grew up in a bunch of different spots. Short version of things is my mom's side of the family is all from the Caribbean and the Virgin Islands. And I lived there when I was little for about 6 years. And while we lived there, there was a show back in the 90s called Emergency Vets. And it was filmed at this hospital out in Colorado. They had a big staff, a decent following. They had interns, and it was just something that was on Animal Planet, like around when Steve Irwin was doing his thing. So I'd watch him, and then I'd watch Emergency Vets, and I'd get my fix for the day. That show really captivated me and got me thinking about veterinary medicine. And then around that same time in my life, we had a Rottweiler named Star, a sweet young female Rottweiler. She was our, basically she was kind of like our guard dog in a way. When I lived in St. Thomas, our house got broken into like 4 times.
What?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's real. No, crime. That was like one of the reasons why we moved, even though my mom's like all of her family was down there at the time. And it was, beautiful down there. The crime rate was higher. Cost of living is higher, all that stuff. But we had this dog, and someone tried to break into the house and like poured something on the dog, and Star, like we got home and she just had this like acid burn all along her back. I like never forget that. I was like, I want to help, but I like couldn't do anything. So like those were some key moments like really early on in my childhood. And like ever since then, like through elementary school, middle school, high school, I was like never really strayed away. I was always interested in science and biology. After high school, went to Auburn for undergrad, War Eagle, and
Boo. Boo. Go Dogs.
Yeah.
Boo.
But we can edit that out, I'm sure. Yeah. The Go Dogs part. But anyway, I stuck to my guns while at Auburn with the hopes of getting into Auburn for veterinary school. Just didn't pan out. I can actually specifically remember when I interviewed at Auburn, I was just like, wow, that went terribly. Like I knew as soon as I finished, I was like, I didn't feel like it went very well. But Tuskegee was right down the road. So I interviewed down there and actually had a really good conversation with Dr. Ruby Perry, who's our dean at the time, still is the dean down there. And I got in and I was really happy. It was kind of like it was meant to be. It seemed. I ended up getting into Ross like a little bit earlier and then declined that with the ability to just live in Auburn, not have to move, be closer to family. My wife right now, we met in high school and I was able to be close to her at the same time. So it was all like kind of a win-win. And then the rest is history. I met you guys. That school was a challenge, but I will say that I throughout the entire experience, learned a lot, learned both like things of like what I think is great and what I should be doing. And then also learned things that maybe I shouldn't be doing. And, that just comes with any experience. And then I went to through the match, like JT, and I matched at, this clinic, Alameda East Veterinary Hospital. Is a VCA hospital. And turned out I didn't even realize that's where they filmed the show that I watched when I was little, which was crazy. I like didn't even plan it that way. I didn't even realize the doctor that was on the show, Dr. Kevin Fitzgerald, shout out to Dr. Kevin Fitzgerald. He was kind of like their main veterinarian on the show. And then after my internship, I ended up working at a small GP in Colorado and then moved back to Alameda as a GP. And he was like my desk buddy for 2 years. And after that, I ended up going through VCA to be sponsored for the internal medicine residency. And that's where I am now.
Wow. That's pretty incredible to be watching a vet on TV who's kind of your inspiration to get into the field and then to share the same clinic as him as a veterinarian is pretty wild. Yeah, and
it was like sure. It was totally unplanned too. It just happened to fall that way. It was crazy.
I will also say that we are all very grateful that you chose Tuskegee as your vet school of choice. Yeah. So like as you said, you're now kind of on the path to internal med to kind of follow down that path of a specialty. Is that something that you kind of always had in the back of your mind, or is that something that you kind of worked your way to as you worked through GP?
Yeah, for me, it was definitely something that I have always been interested in. For me in vet school, like as I was finishing vet school, I was just like going back and forth between different specialties. It was like surgery really wasn't my thing, but for me, it really ended up being something like critical care, which I learned quickly that I didn't want to do. And then, also internal medicine, which I learned to love more and more as I did my internship. So I'd go on internal medicine rotation during internship. We'd be doing these workups on these like tricky cases that were complicated and made me think, you're solving a puzzle essentially in those cases, and they can kind of take you down a bunch of rabbit holes. Then you never end up finding anything, which can be frustrating. But the challenge is kind of what draws people into the field, I think. And then the hands-on aspect, doing endoscopy, doing foreign body scopes, those kinds of things are what really brought me in. I just thought that was so fun. So yeah, those are the big things.
And I know you started out in Colorado, like you said, and I know you you really loved it out there. and now you've kind of worked your way back across to this side of the country there in Arkansas. Do you have plans going forward where you'd like to end up? What part of the country? What state? Possibly Louisville? Not trying to push anything. Just wondering what your thoughts were. On that.
And as a quick reminder, it is Iowa where I'm at, which is probably the most forgetful state out there.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. No offense to anyone that's listening to this in the future from Iowa, but Iowa's not for me. It's not my favorite place in the world. I don't plan on staying, and that's okay. My experience here will be well remembered. For me, I don't know. I am currently looking at 3 clinics that I've spoken with. Let's see, 3 different medical directors. As a VCA sponsored resident, I'm required to work at a VCA hospital for 5 years after my residency. So, number 1, I have to be at a clinic where they're open to hiring on an internist, and then, number 2, it has to be a VCA. So, for me, Chattanooga, Tennessee is one town that has an opening. Number 2 is Loveland, Colorado, about 45 minutes north of where I used to live when I was in Colorado. I actually just did like an informal interview with them this past week. And then there's another clinic out in Santa Rosa, California, in Sonoma County, California, that is looking for an internist. And I've spoken with their medical director kind of just unofficially, and they want to get me out there to check out the clinic and interview.
That's awesome. And yes, you have told us about 1,000 times that it is Iowa. And so it must be a very forgetful state. And I do apologize for that. We're all, I feel like, being on this side, kind of more so East Coast, all rooting for Tennessee. But we wish you the best no matter where you end up.
California, maybe? Louisville? If they have an opening in Louisville, I'll think about it.
And you actually just got back from Costa Rica, correct?
Yeah, I did. I was just down there for a very specific veterinary conference. It was for the Comparative Gastroenterology Society conference. Shout out to CGS for anyone that went or is familiar that will ever be listening to this.
That is extremely specific.
It's extremely specific. It was really cool, though. We had people from all over the world come and talk about their research, both specialists that are board certified and people in training, so residents like myself, as well as some of the graduate students or people currently working on their PhD at places like Texas A&M, where they have a really big gastrointestinal lab, essentially, where they do a lot of GI research specifically.
Awesome.
And it was also beautiful down there. Highly recommend for visiting as well.
I appreciate both of you guys for opening up for us, going over your life story here, and letting us know a little bit more about your journeys. Thank you so much for listening to the Dogtor Bros. If you enjoyed it, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you listen to your podcast. It will also help us out if you could share this episode with others who may be interested in today's topic. You can also tell us what you want to hear. You can drop suggestions in the comments or shoot us an email at thedoctorbros@gmail.com or DM us at thedoctorbros on Instagram. You can also find me personally at Dr. Adam DVM on Instagram. That's DRADAMDVM.
And I'm Chris, and you can find me at Dr. Chris Hernandez on Instagram, dr.chrishernandez.
And this is Brandon Mason. You can also find me on Instagram at Dogtor Mason IM.
And this is Jeff. If you want to follow me on Instagram, it is at DermDogtorJeff, DermDogtorJeff, and also on TikTok.